Prince stood on the balcony of the great palace and watched the stars. His older brother stood beside him, dressed in the finest silk of their empire. Today was the celebration of their coming of age. Today, the entire empire would honor them as true princes. Their father, Emperor, had conquered half the galaxy. His ships ruled the darkness between stars. His armies had crushed 100 worlds and brought them under control. The brothers had grown up believing they were the masters of all things. They had never known doubt. They had never known fear. The celebration filled the city below with light and music. Millions of citizens danced in the streets. Fireworks painted the sky in colors that had no names in human language. Prince smiled at the display. He was tall and proud, with silver skin that shone like polished metal. His 4 arms were crossed behind his back in the pose of a future emperor. Prince was younger by 3 years. He was quieter than his brother. He preferred books to battles and questions to commands. His tutors called him thoughtful. His father called him weak. The music stopped suddenly. The fireworks went dark. Across the city, alarm signals began to flash red against the night sky. Frowned and turned to the communication screen built into the balcony wall. He pressed his hand against it, and the face of Admiral appeared. The Admiral looked confused, which was strange. Admiral had fought in 30 campaigns. Nothing confused him. "My princes," the Admiral said, "we have detected unknown vessels entering the system. They appeared without warning at the outer boundary." Laughed, "Unknown. How is that possible? We have every species in the galaxy." "These ships match no known design. Their technology appears to be primitive. Chemical propulsion, basic metal construction, no energy shields that we can detect." Prince leaned closer to the screen. "How many ships?" 7 vessels. The largest is approximately half the size of our smallest patrol craft." Laughed again, louder this time. 7 primitive ships. This is what stopped our celebration. Destroy them and let us return to the festivities." Admiral hesitated. "Your father has ordered us to wait. The vessels are transmitting a message. They claim to come in peace. They wish to establish contact." Felt something cold move through his chest. He did not know what to call this feeling. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff and looking down into darkness. He had never experienced it before. "Show us the transmission," he said. The screen flickered and changed. A new face appeared. It was unlike anything had ever seen. The creature had only 2 arms. Its skin was soft and brown, covered in some kind of fabric. Its eyes were small and set close together. It had hair on its head, dark and cut short. The creature spoke. Its voice was calm and clear. "This is Commander Lisa Cole of the Earth vessel Endeavor. We represent the United Human Coalition. We have traveled far from our home in search of intelligent life. We come in peace and wish only to establish friendly relations with your civilization. Please respond." Made a sound of disgust. "Look at it, so fragile, so small, 2 arms. How do they accomplish anything with only 2 arms?" Did not respond. He was watching the creature on the screen, Commander Lisa Cole. She sat in what appeared to be a command chair on her primitive ship. Behind her, other creatures like herself moved about their duties. They wore matching clothes and moved with purpose. There was something in the way this Lisa Cole held herself. Something in her eyes. Could not name it, but it made the cold feeling in his chest grow stronger. Their father appeared on the balcony. Emperor was the largest alive, his silver skin marked with the scars of ancient battles. He looked at the screen and smiled the way he smiled before ordering an execution. "Interesting," the Emperor said. "A new species. We have not found one in over a century." "They are pathetic," said. "Their ships are made of scrap metal. They have no weapons worth mentioning. We should destroy them and take their—" Emperor raised one hand for silence. "Patience, my son. Every species has value. Some make good soldiers. Some make good workers. We must study them before we decide how to use them." He pressed the communication panel and spoke in the common trade language that all conquered species were forced to learn. Commander Lisa Cole, I am Emperor of the Empire. You have entered our space without permission. However, I am a merciful ruler. I will allow you to send a representative to my palace. We will discuss your future. The human woman listened. Her expression did not change. Thank you, Emperor. We are grateful for your hospitality. Our ambassador will arrive within 3 days. The transmission ended. Shook his head. Did you see how calmly she accepted your command, Father? They know they are weak. They know they have no choice but to obey. Emperor nodded. They will make acceptable servants. Their small size might be useful in mines or maintenance tunnels. Said nothing. He was thinking about the human commander's eyes. He had seen many species brought before his father. He had seen the defeated look in their faces. He had seen terror and despair and broken hope. He had not seen those things in Lisa Cole's eyes. She had looked at his father the way a hunter looks at prey it has not yet decided to kill. There was patience in that look. There was calculation. There was something that made one a step backward even though she was light years away on her primitive ship. He turned to his father. Perhaps we should be cautious. We know nothing about these creatures. The Emperor looked at his younger son with disappointment. Caution is for the weak. They did not conquer half the galaxy through caution. We conquered it through strength. These humans have no strength. Look at their ships. Look at their bodies. They are nothing. Looked back at the stars where the human ships waited in the darkness. 7 small vessels of crude metal and burning fuel. For the first time in his life, Prince felt something he could not explain. It was like a whisper in the back of his mind. A warning he did not understand. He would learn its name soon enough. The name was fear. The human ambassador arrived on the 3rd day as promised. His shuttle was ugly by standards. It had no curves, no elegance, no beauty. It was a box of metal designed only to function. Prince watched it land in the palace courtyard and felt the cold sensation return to his chest. Ambassador Daniel Grant stepped out first. He was tall for a human, though still shorter than the smallest guard. His hair was gray at the edges, and lines marked his face around the eyes and mouth. He wore a simple dark suit with no decorations except a small pin on his chest showing a blue and green sphere. Behind him came 2 others. A woman with dark hair pulled back tight against her head walked with the smooth grace of a predator. Her name was Maria Santos, and she was introduced as the security officer. The 3rd human was a man called Dr. Park, who carried a small case and smiled too much. Emperor received them in the great throne room. The ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath it. The walls were covered with the flags of conquered worlds. Thousands of nobles filled the galleries to watch the primitive creatures present themselves. Prince stood at his father's right hand. Prince stood at the left. Both had been ordered to attend as part of their education in diplomacy. Ambassador Grant walked the long path to the throne without hurrying. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. He did not look up at the galleries filled with starring. He did not seem impressed by the size of the room or the glory of the empire on display. He simply walked until he reached the proper distance from the throne and stopped. "Emperor," he said, "I bring greetings from the United Human Coalition. We are honored to meet a civilization as accomplished as yours." The Emperor smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You should be honored. You stand in the heart of the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known. Tell me, Ambassador, how many worlds does your coalition control?" 12 colonies beyond our, 13 planets in total. Laughter rippled through the galleries. 13 planets. The Empire controlled over 400. Emperor waved one of his 4 hands in a gesture of dismissal. 13 planets, how charming. And your military? We maintain defensive forces appropriate to our needs. I am sure you do. The Emperor rose from his throne and descended the steps toward the humans. He towered over them by nearly a full body length. "Let me show you what a real empire looks like." He led them through the palace on a tour designed to intimidate. He showed them the trophy hall, where the weapons of defeated species hung on walls that stretched for kilometers. He showed them the slave pens, where creatures from a dozen worlds waited to be assigned their duties. He showed them the execution grounds, where traitors and rebels met their end. Through it all, Ambassador Grant watched and listened. His expression never changed. Maria Santos walked beside him with her eyes constantly moving, watching everything. Dr. Park took notes on a small device. Prince followed behind the group and studied the humans. He was waiting for them to show fear. Every other species did. When they saw the trophies, they trembled. When they saw the slaves, they wept. When they saw the execution grounds, they understood their future. The humans showed nothing. At last, Emperor brought them to the military training grounds. Elite guards performed combat exercises with weapons that could cut through starship hulls. They moved with perfect coordination, 4 arms working in deadly harmony. They were the finest soldiers in the galaxy. "Impressive," Ambassador Grant said. It was the first opinion he had offered all day. The Emperor smiled. "Perhaps you would like to see a demonstration of our superiority in personal combat." "That would be educational." A guard stepped forward. He was massive even by standards, his body covered in battle scars, his 4 arms thick with muscle. He stood in the training ring and waited. Maria Santos stepped forward. "May I offer a small demonstration in return?" The Emperor laughed. "You wish to fight my guard. You have 2 arms and half his weight." "I wish to demonstrate human capability." The Emperor looked at his sons, was grinning, even allowed himself a small smile. This would be entertaining. "Very well," the Emperor said. "Try not to kill her. We need them alive for now." The guard called entered a fighting stance. Maria Santos walked into the ring with her hands at her sides. She did not take a stance. She simply stood there, relaxed, watching. Attacked. All 4 arms moved at once, a whirlwind of violence that had killed hundreds of opponents. He was fast and brutal and utterly confident. Maria Santos moved. Could not follow what happened. One moment was attacking. The next moment he was on the ground, unconscious, his 4 arms twisted beneath him. Maria Santos stood over him, breathing normally. She had not even removed her jacket. The throne room went silent. Dr. Park cleared his throat. "Humans evolved on a planet where everything tried to kill us. Predators, weather, disease, even some of our plants. Survival required constant adaptation. We learned to fight before we learned to speak." Maria Santos stepped out of the ring and returned to her position beside the ambassador. She did not smile. She did not boast. She simply waited for whatever came next. Prince looked at her eyes and finally understood what he had seen in Commander Lisa Cole. It was not pride. It was not anger. It was readiness. These creatures were always ready for violence. They carried it with them the way carried their honor. It was part of them, as natural as breathing. Prince was no longer smiling. Emperor was no longer laughing. And Prince finally had a name for the cold feeling in his chest. It was fear. And for the first time in history, it was justified. Prince could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Maria Santos standing over the fallen guard. He saw the calm expression on her face. He saw how easily she had destroyed one of the finest warriors in the Empire. On the 7th night after the human visit, he went to the palace library. The great archive contained information on every known species in the galaxy. Somewhere in those endless files, there had to be answers. He began with Earth, the human. The data was limited. Long-range scans and intercepted communications mostly. But what he found made his blood run cold. Earth was classified as a Category 7 death world. The scale only went to 10. No intelligent species had ever evolved on anything above Category 4. Read about the planet's conditions, extreme temperature variations between seasons, violent weather patterns including storms that could level cities, earthquakes that split the ground open, volcanic eruptions that blocked the sun for years. The humans called these events natural disasters. They happened regularly. And the predators. Earth was filled with creatures designed to kill, pack hunters that worked together, ambush predators that hid in water and grass, venomous animals that killed with a single bite. The humans had not merely survived among these threats, they had hunted them. They had driven many to extinction. But the most disturbing discovery was human history. The humans had spent most of their existence at war, not with other species, with each other. They had fought over territory, resources, beliefs, and things could not even understand. They had invented weapons specifically designed to kill other humans. They had refined the art of warfare for thousands of years. Found records of something called persistence hunting. Early humans had not been the fastest or strongest predators on their world, so they had developed a different strategy. They would chase their prey for hours, sometimes days. They would follow it across any terrain, never stopping, never resting, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would kill it. The thought made Phil sick. What kind of creature evolved to chase its prey until it died from running? He read about human endurance. They could survive injuries that would kill any. They could lose limbs and continue fighting. They could function without sleep for days. Their bodies could adapt to almost any environment, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. Then he found the psychological studies. Human loyalty logic. They would die for family members. They would die for friends. They would die for complete strangers if they believed the cause was right. They formed bonds that could not be broken by pain or fear or the promise of death. And their anger. When humans felt their loved ones were threatened, they entered a mental state that suppressed fear and pain. They became capable of violence that shocked even their own scientists. They called it many names: rage, fury, the berserker state. Pushed back from the reading screen and stared at the ceiling. He had studied 100 conquered species. He had learned their weaknesses and their strengths. None of them were like this. They had conquered the galaxy because they were stronger than everyone else. Their 4 arms gave them advantages in combat. Their technology was superior. Their empire was vast and organized and ruthless. But the humans did not care about any of that. They did not calculate odds the way logical species did. They did not surrender when defeat was certain. They fought until they won or died, and sometimes they found ways to win that should have been impossible. Footsteps echoed in the library. Turned to find his brother walking toward him. "I knew I would find you here," said, still obsessing over the primitives. "They are not primitive. Their technology is crude, but they are not primitive." Laughed. "They have 2 arms and soft skin. They are barely more advanced than animals." Turned the screen toward his brother. "Read this." Rolled his eyes but leaned forward to look. Watched his brother's face as he read. He watched the amusement fade. He watched confusion replace it. Then something else. Something had probably never felt in his entire privileged life. "This cannot be accurate," said. "No species survives a Category 7 world." They did more than survive. They conquered it. They spread across their entire planet. They killed anything that threatened them. And when they ran out of enemies on their world, they started looking at the stars. Read more. His 4 hands gripped the edge of the reading table. They fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. Over ideas, over beliefs. Who does that? Humans do. And this persistence hunting. They chase animals until they collapse from exhaustion. Yes. Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, smaller somehow. "Father plans to demand their surrender. He believes their weak technology makes them easy targets." "I know." He is wrong. Nodded slowly. It was the first time his brother had ever admitted their father could make a mistake. What do we do? Asked. We try to warn him. We show him what I have found. He will not listen. He has never lost. He does not believe he can lose. Stood and gathered the research files. Then we must make him understand, before he does something that cannot be undone. The brothers left the library together. For the first time in their lives they were united, united by knowledge, united by fear, and united by the terrible understanding that their empire, their father, their entire civilization stood at the edge of a cliff. Below them waited the humans, and humans never stopped chasing their prey. The throne room was filled with generals and admirals. Flags of conquered worlds hung from the ceiling like trophies of the hunt. Emperor sat on his throne and smiled at the human delegation standing before him. Prince stood at his father's left hand, his research files hidden beneath his formal robes. Prince stood at the right, his face carefully blank. They had tried to speak with their father that morning. He had refused to listen. He had called them cowards and children. Now they could only watch. Ambassador Daniel Grant stood in the center of the great hall. Maria Santos and Dr. Park flanked him. They were surrounded by guards, outnumbered by thousands to one. They did not seem concerned. Emperor raised one hand for silence. The murmuring crowd went quiet. Ambassador Grant, the emperor said, I have considered your request for friendly relations. I have studied your species and your capabilities. I have reached a decision. He paused for effect. The gathered nobles leaned forward. Humanity will submit to rule. Your worlds will become part of my empire. Your people will serve us as workers and soldiers. You have 10 days to communicate our terms to your government and arrange the formal surrender. The crowd cheered. Generals pounded their fists against their chests in the ancient gesture of victory. Admirals laughed and congratulated each other on the new conquest. Ambassador Grant waited for the noise to fade. Then he spoke. Emperor, I appreciate your directness. Allow me to be equally direct. He took a step forward. The guards around him tensed, but he ignored them. I have been an ambassador for 30 years. I have negotiated with species across the galaxy. Some were friendly. Some were hostile. Some were very much like you, convinced of their own superiority, certain that smaller species existed only to serve them. He paused. His eyes swept across the throne room, taking in the flags of conquered worlds, the armed guards, the emperor on his throne of bones. Do you know what happened to those species, Emperor? Smile flickered. They submitted to greater powers, as you will. No, they made the mistake of threatening humanity. They learned what that means. The ambassador's voice did not rise. It did not need to. There was something in it that cut through the vast space like a blade. Let me tell you about human history, Emperor. We spent 10,000 years at war with ourselves. We fought over land, over resources, over ideas. We invented weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. We created poisons that could kill millions. We built machines designed only for killing each other. Dr. Park stepped forward and activated a small projector. Images appeared in the air above the throne room. Cities in flames. Armies clashing across ruined landscapes. Mushroom clouds rising over destroyed civilizations. This is what we did to ourselves, Ambassador Grant continued. This is what we are capable of when we feel threatened, and we did this with 2 arms and soft skin and primitive technology. He looked directly at the Emperor. We have a word for the feeling that rises in humans when someone threatens our families, our homes, our freedom. The word is war. It is not a strategy for us. It is not a tool. It is something that lives in our blood, something that sleeps until it is needed. The images changed. Human soldiers charging into battle against impossible odds, ships ramming enemy vessels rather than surrendering, cities fighting to the last defender against armies 10 times their size. You see our crude ships and think we are weak. You see our small bodies and think we are prey. This is a mistake. Every species that has made this mistake has regretted it. Emperor stood from his throne, his 4 hands clenched into fists. Is this a threat, Ambassador? No, Emperor. It is an explanation. If you attack humanity, we will fight. We will not surrender. We will not negotiate. We will fight until every human is dead or every enemy is destroyed. There is no middle ground. There is no compromise. He stepped back and straightened his jacket. You have 10 days to reconsider your position. I suggest you use them wisely. The ambassador turned and walked toward the exit. Maria Santos and Dr. Park followed him. The crowd parted to let them pass. No one tried to stop them. Prince watched the humans leave. He saw the way Ambassador Grant walked, straight spine, measured steps, no fear, not even concern. He had seen the same walk in prisoners being led to execution, men and women who had accepted their fate and refused to beg. There was a dignity in that walk, a terrible, frightening dignity. Emperor was shouting orders. Admirals were rushing to prepare the fleet. The great war machine of the empire was waking from its sleep. Prince grabbed his brother's arm. We have to try again. They found their father in his private chambers that night. They presented the research files. They explained what they had learned about human psychology, human endurance, human persistence. Emperor listened in silence. When they finished, he stood and walked to the window overlooking his empire. You ask me to fear these creatures, he said. You ask me to show weakness. We ask you to show wisdom, said. The emperor turned. His eyes were cold. The empire was not built by wisdom. It was built by strength, by conquest, by the willingness to destroy anyone who stood in our way. He raised one hand and pointed at the door. Leave, both of you. The fleet launches in 7 days. Moved toward the door, remained. Father, please. I said leave. Left, the door closed behind him. In the hallway, his brother waited with shadows under his eyes. He will not listen, said. No. Then we watch, we wait, and we pray that somehow the humans are not as dangerous as we think. But knew better. He had seen the truth in Ambassador Grant's eyes. The humans were exactly as dangerous as he thought. Perhaps more. The war began on a quiet morning. Fleets struck 3 human colonies without warning. The attacks were meant to be quick and decisive. Superior technology against primitive defenses. 400 warships against a handful of outposts. By sunset, they had lost 80 ships. Prince stood in the war room and watched the reports come in. The human defenses should have crumbled in minutes. Instead, they adapted. They changed tactics mid-battle. They found weaknesses in formations that had been used successfully for centuries. And they refused to retreat. One human destroyer, badly damaged and losing atmosphere, had rammed itself into a carrier. The crew had steered their dying ship into the enemy rather than escape in pods. They had killed 3,000 soldiers with their deaths. The commander of that destroyer was named Lieutenant Casey. He had broadcast a final message before impact. He had been smiling. Prince was assigned to lead the second wave. He took 100 ships to a small human mining outpost at the edge of their territory. He expected easy victory. The outpost had only 2 defending vessels and a population of 12,000 civilians. He returned with 43 ships. His flagship bore scars that would never fully heal. Met his brother in the landing bay. Walked down the ramp like an old man. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. His eyes stared at something no one else could see. What happened? Asked. Stopped walking. He stood in silence for a long moment. They would not stop, he said. We destroyed their first ship in minutes. The second ship was damaged beyond repair. It should have surrendered. Any logical species would have surrendered. He looked at his brother with hollow eyes. Instead, the captain ordered all civilians onto escape pods. She launched them toward the nearest human colony. Then she turned her broken ship toward my fleet. She attacked you, alone, in a damaged vessel. She did more than attack. She fought for 4 hours. She used asteroids as cover. She fired on our ships from angles we did not think possible. She took out 17 of my vessels before we finally destroyed her. His voice cracked. Her name was Commander Bate. When we finally breached her hull, she was standing on her bridge with a weapon in each hand. She was bleeding from a dozen wounds. Half her crew was dead around her, and she was smiling. She was smiling as she died. He grabbed his brother's shoulders. What kind of creatures smile while they die? The war continued for 3 months. Every battle was worse than the last. The won most engagements. They had superior numbers and superior technology, but every victory cost them more than they could afford. Human ships rammed enemy vessels rather than surrender. Human soldiers fought from positions that should have been indefensible. Human colonies armed their civilians and resisted until the last defender fell. And they learned. They studied tactics and adapted. Weaknesses that worked in the first battle were countered by the third. Strategies that had crushed 100 species failed against creatures who refused to accept defeat. Prince spent his days monitoring communications from the front lines. He heard things that haunted his sleep. He heard officers begging for reinforcements against enemies who should have been extinct. He heard soldiers describe humans who kept fighting after wounds that would kill any. He heard whispers about a human unit that had charged an artillery position while singing. They had died to the last soldier, but they had taken the position. The Empire was learning what fear truly meant. 3 months after the first attack, Emperor called his sons to the throne room. He was alone. The generals and admirals who usually surrounded him were gone, sent to command distant fronts. The flags of conquered worlds hung silent and still. The Emperor looked old. His silver skin had lost its shine. His 4 hands trembled slightly as he gripped the arms of his throne. "You were right," he said. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. "Both of you, I was wrong." Prince stepped forward. "What do you need from us, father?" "Advice. For the first time in my reign, I do not know what to do. Our fleets are being destroyed. Our soldiers are terrified. We are winning battles but losing the war. Every victory costs us more than we can replace." He looked at his younger son. "You studied them, you tried to warn me. What do you recommend?" Had thought about this moment for months. He had prepared arguments and evidence and logical presentations. But standing before his broken father, he found that only one word mattered. Peace. They will demand surrender. No, they will demand respect. The humans do not want to destroy us. They want to be treated as equals. Give them that and this war can end. Emperor closed his eyes. "I have never treated anyone as equal." "Then this is a good time to learn." The message went out that night. A request for negotiation, an offer of peace, an admission that the Empire had made a mistake. Ambassador Daniel Grant responded within hours. He accepted the offer. He suggested a neutral location. He asked only that the come prepared to discuss partnership rather than conquest. 1 month later, Prince stood on the same balcony where he had first seen human ships. A new fleet was arriving, larger this time, more powerful, but they came as potential allies rather than victims. Stood beside him. Their father was inside, preparing for the negotiations that would reshape the galaxy. "I was wrong about them," said. "I thought they were weak because they had soft skin and 2 arms. Everyone makes that mistake. Not anymore, not after what they showed us." A human shuttle detached from the lead vessel and began its descent toward the palace. Watched it fall through the atmosphere like a meteor. "Do you still fear them?" asked. Considered the question. He thought about Commander Bates smiling as she died. He thought about soldiers singing while they charged into certain death. He thought about a species that had survived a world designed to kill them and emerged stronger for it. "Yes," he said, "I will always fear them." He watched the shuttle land in the courtyard below. Ambassador Grant stepped out, followed by Maria Santos and Dr. Park. They looked up at the balcony and saw the princes watching. Maria Santos smiled and raised one hand in greeting. Raised his hand in return. "But I have learned something," he continued. "Fear is not always bad. Sometimes fear is the first step toward wisdom. These humans taught me that." "What else did they teach you?" Watched the human delegation walk toward the palace doors. These small, fragile, terrifying creatures who had brought the greatest empire in the galaxy to its knees. They taught me that strength is not about size or numbers or technology. Strength is about will, about refusing to surrender even when defeat seems certain, about protecting what you love regardless of the cost. He turned to his brother. "If we can earn their friendship instead of their fear, imagine what we could accomplish together. Imagine what the galaxy could become with humans as our allies instead of our enemies." Nodded slowly, "An alliance of the strong and the stronger." "Yes." Below them, the palace doors opened to receive the human ambassador. A new chapter was beginning, a chapter written in respect instead of blood. Prince looked at the stars and felt something new in his chest, not the cold weight of fear, something warmer, something he had never experienced before. Hope. The humans had given him that too.